So he's definitely up to something here.
Jonathan Salem on the right, he's a person that I know personally from the San Diego area, and he is playing Esper Control. Trying to bring it back.
Yeah, Shaheen Sarani, eat your heart out. I know he's not here this weekend, unfortunately, but he's probably watching now intently and see if Salem can get the job done here. Any spice over there in that deck list? We've seen this type of deck before.
No particular spice, a lot of removal, a couple Planeswalkers, a main deck Resolute Archangel, but more or less the cards you'd expect to see here.
We're underway here in round number 1 of 16 from Seattle. It's a Temple of Silence for Jonathan, and it is a Springleaf Drum here for Nass off of Yavimaya Coast. If you're Salem, you probably know what your opponent's up to right away in some fashion now.
You should, though. This deck has, first of all, there's some elements of this deck that are different. And second, we haven't seen much of this build of Ascendancy in a long time.
Well, you see the grip there from the Thoughtseize, 2 Jeskai Ascendancy, 2 Dragon Mantles, Retraction Helix, and a Mana Confluence. So Nass doesn't need another land to be able to cast the Broken Enchantment, but Salem's going to get this information down, of course select a card, and move forward accordingly.
This hand's kind of bad news here for Jonathan because there's not a real hole punch in with this Thoughtseize. He could take a Retraction Helix here and Strand Mat with just an Ascendancy and no real way to go off. But ideally, Salem would like to take an Ascendancy out of his hand, but there's no sense in doing that with the second copy in hand already.
Yeah, unless he's got another Thoughtseize in the grip at the ready. It doesn't make a ton of sense to take one of those Ascendancies, and all Matt needs is one. And you can see he's taking his time with the decision. As you mentioned, Retraction Helix is kind of the red herring here. It's the easiest one to take.
Yeah, it leaves Matt with a hand that can't really go off, but you're leaving Matt with 2 copies of Jeskai Ascendancy and 2 copies of Dragon's Mantle. So if Nass does find a creature, all of a sudden he has a lot of card drawing and can likely get to another copy of Retraction Helix.
And that's the card Salem will take. He'll play a Temple of Silence, put the top card to the bottom before passing the turn back over to Nass. Nass will take a draw here as he examines his hand, picks up a copy of Retraction Helix. So it's like Thoughtseize didn't happen at all.
Perfect.
Just how he drew it up.
Nass still needs to find land number 3, but...
and Ashiok will come into play. And that will tick up. So 3 cards coming. 1's a Sylvan Caryatid. 2 is, you guessed it, Karametra's Favor. Can't get that one by me.
Super fun.
And now in a Crone Crusader. Nass will draw cards. Another copy of Dragon's Mantle. He's got a full house over there. And so he'll pass the turn back over to Salem. Salem will draw another copy of Thoughtseize. Maybe he's wishing he took that Jeskai Ascendancy now. We'll see, though.
Well, it's tough to take the Ascendancy there when, you know, you don't have another Thoughtseize and all Matt needs to do is find land number 3 or a creature to get into play. But as things turn out, Salem could have stripped both the Ascendancies out of this hand and left Matt with virtually nothing.
Ashiok ticks down, puts Sylvan Caryatid into play. Salem will take a Retraction Helix before passing the turn back. Nass's draw was a copy of God's Willing, so he's having some mana issues here as Salem will draw a card now.
Salem also missing some land drops, and I think that might be the reason that he took the Caryatid here, on top of it being a second blue mana, which allows Dissolve to be in play.
Here's Sorin. That's going to tick down. That'll bring in a Tom Ross Vampire token for passing turn back. Nass will draw a card. Doesn't look like it was a land, though it does look like it's a spell that he can cast, and it is. It's the Astronomer.
Yeah, and I imagine Salem will be reading this one.
I don't think this is the only person that will be reading the Astronomer. Now, Heroic, whenever you cast a spell that targets this, look at the top 3 cards of your library. You reveal an enchantment card from among them and put it into your hand. Nass is going to do that via Dragon's Mantle. So he'll trigger the Heroic, put the rest on the bottom of your library in order, of course, after you're done resolving this. So, again, this is not a card that you put in your deck on accident.
No. And this is, again, trying to set up a base of consistency for this style of deck, which is often a problem.
And this deck actually can kind of really get going as far as the Heroic and the enchantments are concerned, because a card like Nyxborn Reliquer, for example, is an enchantment. So Nass is definitely up to something here as he finally found a land in Battlefield Forge and will pass the turn back over to Salem. Salem will draw.
The Reliquer does a lot of little stuff. It's another enchantment that he can find, it's another thing to bestow with, and it's another cheap creature for Springleaf Drum.
I've been informed they're now sold out on Star City Games.
Yes.
They're gone.
You missed your opportunity, all you MTG finance people out there. Too late.
It's too bad. Make sure you use that hashtag, though. Salem going to figure out how he wants to use his Planeswalkers. He does have a copy of Hostilities in his hand. There's also a Despise and a Murderous Cut hanging out over there. Looks like the Sorin Elevator is going to go up, so that Vampire token is going to have lifelink and an additional point of power. 3 damage going to come across. Salem will gain a little bit here and deal Nass some damage, but for Salem, you saw him read the Astronomer, and he's probably thinking, okay, I have no idea how your deck works, but I'm going to kill that, which I think is pretty smart, except for this God's Willing is going to kind of blow that up.
And for as bad as Nass's start was, missing land drops and all that kind of stuff, Salem's deck is light on ways to really interact with what's going on.
Now here's the scary thing. For Nass's deck, I see him let us Astronomer in play. Now Heroic is triggering right now from the Astronomer, so these cards are going to go to the bottom. Didn't find an enchantment, but I don't know if he's capable of killing him next turn. I think he might be able to. He's got mana for Ascendancy and the Springleaf Drum in play.
Yes, it seems.
It's possible.
Yep. I mean, he's just a Retraction Helix short at this point.
And I think the second one got taken from Thoughtseize, so he is short right now, but I have a feeling he might be able to get kind of frisky with his deck here.
And even if he doesn't go off, he's going to do a lot of looting.
Yep. Chances are he's going to see a lot of cards. So this could be a very, very interesting turn and an interesting first round of Magic here from the Invitational. Nass is going to now resolve his God's Willing. Of course, the first thing that we saw him do is trigger Heroic with the Astronomer, put the cards to the bottom, didn't find an enchantment. Now God's Willing has resolved. Now he will, of course, choose protection from black to make sure that Hero's Downfall is countered upon resolution and scry 1.
The trigger from the Astronomer occurs before God's Willing actually resolves. So the first order of business is resolving the trigger. Now the God's Willing itself is actually resolving. And as part of that, Matt is scrying.
Top card going to stay on top. Remember, this is all happening on Salem's turn, so when Nass gets to untap, you can see the 2 copies of Jeskai Ascendancy. This could get pretty ugly.
The card that is making waves across every format. Standard, Modern especially.
Sam Black's playing in Legacy this weekend.
We saw a little bit of it in Legacy in Portland last weekend. I think we're going to see more of it. I don't know if it's shown up in Vintage yet, but I have to assume it's going to show up at some point.
Yeah, when Sam came up to me as I walked in this morning, he said, do you know anyone by chance that has a Wind Zendikon? And that was my response, the laughter mostly.
That's the card that enchants a land and turns it into a 2/2 flyer or something?
That's correct, very good.
So that's sort of the Fairy Conclave slot. That's a way to...
Ish, yeah.
Except that you don't actually have to put a Fairy Conclave in your deck. That's a sweet upgrade.
I like it.
Yeah, I like it too. That makes sense.
You can Enlighten Tutor for it, or Jeskai Ascendancy. Kaboom.
What's not to like?
Looks like Ashek's going to go down, bring Sylvan Caryatid into play. Now, remember, one of those Caryatids is Summoning Sick. One of them is good to go. But Nass is going to untap here. Those 5 permanents. It's time to draw.
I think Salem may be purely shields down at this moment.
I think if you're Nass and you're playing against this type of deck, your assumption is that he is shields down. Now, one card he could have available here is a card like Murderous Cut, but he also has to have 4 cards in the graveyard, and I don't think that is the case.
Yeah, he's got 2 discard spells plus the Hero's Downfall. The second Caryatid just came into play, so that's not available.
Yep. Looks like Nass is going to take a little bit of damage here. It does look to be a painful mana base here for Matt and his deck, but there is a Jeskai Ascendancy, the namesake card of this deck. We're going to go using the drum here, and now this is going to be fun to keep up with. You've got yourself a Dragon's Mantle. You've got a bunch of triggers now. You've got a Heroic trigger from the Astronomer. You've got a Jeskai Ascendancy trigger. And you've, of course, got a Dragon's Mantle trigger once that comes into play. So we'll see how Nass stacks them.
And inside of the Ascendancy trigger is multiple things going on.
That's fun. Isn't that neat? Though, if there is one player who's actually pretty good at kind of handling this sort of thing, it is Nass. He's played a lot of combo decks in his life.
Most of his success in Legacy has come with elves.
Yeah.
And so he's someone familiar with decks that have a pretty complicated stack, have pretty tough order of operations.
When you broke onto the scene, I'm going to use the forbidden word here, extended.
Sure.
A format that is no longer with us, but
Type 1.5?
yeah, he won his Grand Prix in Oakland years ago with elves in that format. So a deck with a lot of triggers and a lot of upkeep and making decisions like this with cards, he's very familiar with this. This is not foreign territory for him. You see he's going to draw and discard with Ascendancy. Now he will untap his creature. And now he'll draw a card from Dragon's Mantle. Boom. He'll draw another copy of Dragon's Mantle. Can he go deeper into his deck? It looked like he picked up a copy of a Crone Crusader, but he's already used his drum for the turn. That doesn't untap with Ascendancy, so now he just has to pass the turn back. So Salem gets out of that one pretty light. There is an Ascendancy on the table right now.
That's the big problem, and I'm looking for ways to remove an Ascendancy once it's in play, and I believe that there are 0 cards in the deck that do this.
The big donut.
No Banishing Lights.
Utter End, that hiding out.
Excuse me, 2 copies of Utter End.
Okay. Those are the first cards I thought of for Banished Light and Utter End. Despise is going to take care of a Crone Crusader. Timely Despise there. You do see there are 2 Dragon Mantles and another copy of Jeskai Ascendancy in the grip there for Nass. Ashiok Not going to be used just yet. Looks like Salem is going to get some damage in here. May have ticked down Sorin for another Vampire token. That's going to enter the battlefield.
With Matt taking as much damage off the lands as he has, and these 2 Vampires, Salem's clock's not bad.
Yep.
It's reasonable, and that's the big thing. Salem needs to speed this up as much as possible because time is not on his side.
The longer we go, the worse it gets. Crusader's going to come into play off of Ashiok. So.
Nice.
Jonathan's just trying to get a board presence out here. He's got 4 mana. He's going to cast Murderous Cut, delve 1 card away, get the Astronomer off of the table. So he's interacting a little bit better than I actually thought he would.
This is not bad. I mean, Matt has no board right now. He needs a creature to get anything started.
Frontier Bivouac's not what the doctor ordered. So it looks like he's going to have to get a little bit creative here. He'll take 1 point of damage. Somebody's casting a Dragon Mantle on your opponent's creature, perhaps? And I believe, yeah, you can. Enters the battlefield, draw a card. So, see Sam's going to take a look at that. So I'm wondering, Heroic, how does that work on my side? Does that work favorable for me? I believe the answer is no. So Nass will draw a card. Ah, there's the Rollicker.
I'm really surprised to see this go on the Crusader rather than one of the Caryatids.
Sure.
Because Salem has access to red mana.
Can't target it.
Oh,
Hexproof.
Oh,
Yeah.
excuse me, yes.
No, I was thinking the same thing,
Yes.
actually. It is risky.
Yeah, no, but it has to go somewhere. He has to cast it.
Matt's doing some counting here.
Well, he needs to know if he's not dead next turn because there's still a Sorin in play, so that's plus 2 points of damage on the Flyers guaranteed.
He's got to carry out of his own now. I'm fascinated to see if he can somehow work his way out of this situation, especially given how painful his mana is right now.
Well, I feel like he needs to find a second creature here because this Caryatid, I believe, is forced to block the Crusader next turn.
I believe so. I believe so.
Because the Sorin goes up, that means it's 6 points of damage from the Vampires.
That's just 8 by itself. You know, the 6 there and then Crusader plus the Sorin. Yeah, that's just 8 by itself.
So he kind of needs to find another creature in all of this.
With the Dragon Mantle on the Crusader, does Salem get to pump it, or does he get to use the Dragon Mantle because it's matched Dragon? Salem can't. Back we go. There's the Rollicker, looks to be on chump blocking duty.
And that's, well, then Matt gets to go to next turn.
Yeah.
And he's going to be tied up on mana to some extent, just because his colored mana situation is not very good, but we've seen the Ascendancy win out of boards like this before.
You know, just a Nyxborn Rollicker here at the Invitational. It's time to block, yep. Salem's going to gain some life, of course, here with Sorin, but it does not look to be lethal. So that 6 points of damage is going to come across. Now, the big question here, again, is can Nass actually get the job done given his mana base that is so painful?
And this is an interesting situation here because Jonathan has, I believe, End Hostilities in hand. So he can cast End Hostilities minus the Sorin and hope that the 2/2 can get across the finish line next turn.
Okay, okay.
And I think there's a big risk in letting Nass go into the next turn with the Caryatid.
We've seen this before, right? With Caryatid plus Jeskai Ascendancy plus Springleaf Drum, you have to be thinking to yourself, I need to get that Caryatid off the table. Because we've seen versions of this deck win before. Now, this isn't the exact same one, and I know this play isn't, all that great to want to do that. But as you mentioned, the fact that you might be able to leave something behind is not bad.
Yeah. It's a big risk. And Jonathan also has the ability to minus the Ashiok and get a Rollicker too, right? So he can get a second creature for whatever that's worth.
Yep. Now, we can't forget he's already used the Sorin this turn as far as on the uptick. So no Vampire coming this turn. The Vampire will be coming next turn. Or, as you mentioned, just put the Rollicker into play and then plus it with Sorin, and that's 2 points of damage. So
I know it's a non-intuitive play, but it is an enormous risk to let Matt go into the turn with this board.
I would do exactly what Jonathan is doing right now, which is think things through.
Yeah, there's no rush. This turn is the whole game potentially. So,
Yeah.
And Jonathan did a very good job of navigating it thus far.
Yeah, he's tapping 5 mana. It looks like he's going to cast on Hostilities, which looks like it may be. He's got another card in his hand. Yeah, he's going to cast it. And I'm with you. I like this play a lot. I think this is something he has to do. Again, it's non-intuitive, but there's the Rollicker that's going to come into play off of Ashiok. and past the turn back, he's still presenting lethal.
Exactly. And Matt can't even, even setting aside the Sorin for a moment, if he taps any of his lands for mana.
Matt's draw this turn was just a land. It was a copy of Mana Confluence. You see his hand, and he's going to pick up his card. So Jonathan Salem is going to win game number 1 here off some timely discard and some Planeswalkers with Esper Control. Up a game here over, yes, Astronomer Ascendancy.
And that's a big win here for Jonathan because he's not really flush with interaction game 1. But Matthew just stumbled for a little bit too long on the Sorin, gave Jonathan a really nice clock that game.
Take a look at the sideboard here on Nass's side, since he will be playing first 4 copies of Swan Song, 3 Treasure Cruise, 4 Nyx Fleece Ram, 3 copies of Race, and God's Willing, just a singleton one. Now, we have seen this with these type of Ascendancy decks where their sideboard, not all that great.
It's tough because so much of your deck is slotted in because the combination requires so many cards. You can't sideboard that heavy. I think the additional God's Willing is nice against Jonathan's deck because he has so much expensive removal. The Swan Songs and the Treasure Cruises also seem reasonable to me as well.
What do we got on the other side?
3 copies of Drowned Sorrow, a Last Breath, 2 Disdainful Strokes, 2 copies of Burmaz, an Elspeth, a Pearl Lake Ancient, and a Race, 3 copies of Nyx Fleece Ram, and a Bioblight. I think the extra removal spells will likely come in. I think the copy of Bioblight, I think the copy of Last Breath, the Drowned Sorrows here are probably okay. None of these are answers to carry added, but they answer a lot of the rest of Matthew's base. I think the 1 copy of Erase will come in here as well. Good answer to Ascendancy. Plus, Matthew just a lot of random enchantment creatures in his deck as well.
Well, game number 2 will be underway here as these players do sideboard it up and try to identify how they can try to beat each other. But Star City Games holiday sale, November 28th to December 31st, which is going to be here sooner than you think.
We're in the middle of it right now, and Star City Games does periodically run sales throughout the year. The biggest one happens to be during the holidays, so make sure to be checking back to the website periodically. New stuff's added every time 11 o'clock in the morning rolls around on Eastern time, so make sure to be checking back to the website regularly. A lot of sweet deals go on sale, so make sure to head over to Star City Games when you have the chance.
You know, it's just that season. It's a holiday season.
Yeah.
So everyone's trying to get rid of their stuff.
A lot of shopping you can do for your loved ones, a lot of shopping you can do for yourself.
You can even shop for people who you don't love.
Right.
That's also an option.
It could be shopping for your liked ones.
Yes.
It could be shopping for your secretly resent this person ones.
Those you tolerate.
Yeah, those who tolerate.
Yep.
Contemporaries, peers.
Look, they'll all take your money.
Yeah, none of them care at the end of the day. They don't mind. So just go over to Star City Games now and take care of that shopping. Doesn't matter what the reason is, they don't care.
Matt Nass going to get ready for game number 2 here against Jonathan Salem. We'll see what the Astronomer Ascendancy deck can do here. Again, he, Pardee, I think Nathan Holiday as well, pretty excited about this deck.
Yeah, I think so too. It's cool. Not off to a great start here, but it's interesting to see kind of a reversion to the old builds of Ascendancy that when the talk of Standard has been Yu Yu Watanabe's token strategy that has gotten away from the retraction helix spring leaf drum type of kills.
And during our conversation in the pregame show, you, myself, and Patrick Chapin, we talked about, the whip decks, be it Abzan or Sultai. We talked about Abzan mid-range. We talked about Heroic a little bit, as well as, the Jeskai tokens deck that Yu Watanabe put together at the World Championships. And the diversity of Standard in general. It's quite a diverse format. And, look at the 2 decks that we're starting off with here. None of the decks that we really talked about.
And there is some merit to going back to Sylvie Caryatid builds of this deck because so many people are moving towards Bioblight and Drowned Sorrow to fight the token builds. So having a hexproof way to go off is pretty nice. So much holiday shopping still left to do. When we add up loved ones, liked ones, contemporaries, people I quietly resent, and all sorts of other categories, I still have a lot left to do.
I don't buy gifts for anyone.
You don't?
No. I'm a hater.
You might be part of, maybe you're inside of you might be inside of all 4 categories. You might be a loved one gift, a liked one gift, a contemporary gift, and a secretly resent gift.
Absolutely.
All 4 of them.
Yeah.
So I've probably had to head over to Star City Games right now and get a playset of something.
Yeah, that'd be really nice of you. Dial me up, Daddy-O. Don't mind if I do ski.
Yep.
See what Nass can put together with his opening hand. Salem actually gave kind of a reaffirming head nod there pretty quickly. So Nass is going to send it back, which is, I imagine, something his deck does a decent amount of the time.
Well, we've seen this before out of Ascendancy decks where you draw up opening hands where, colored mana doesn't cooperate. You have a handful of nonsense without Ascendancy, and you just have to send those back.
See, for me, with the gifts, very quickly, I I can buy you a gift anytime. Why do I have to do it at Christmas? I don't like to be forced to do something.
That's just, you know, that's kind of how holidays work.
So cliche. I'm supposed to buy you a Christmas gift.
You could give thanks at any time during the year for things, but it's good to give thanks at the same time as everyone else so you can get together and celebrate that spirit. That's sort of how the whole thing works.
I see. Just middle of January. I might just buy you dinner. Why? Because why not? And I'll say Merry Christmas then, too.
Okay.
It'll just be kind of our happy birthday when it's not even close to your birthday.
It will be at some point.
That's true. Frontier Bivouac to start. Here's some thoughts off of Caves of Koilos. We will see a Dragon's Mantle, a Treasure Cruise, a Swan Song, along with a Yavimaya Coast and a Battlefield Forge.
One of the nonsense hands that Ascendancy can get sometimes, but Treasure Cruise post-board helps stabilize things a little bit, and if Matthew finds an Ascendancy, it doesn't really matter what the hand looks like right now.
3 Treasure Cruises on the board. You have to imagine that Nass brought in all 3 copies of that card. Salem taking a long look at Swan Song as his option here with Thoughtseize, though he will consult his grip and get some other cards consideration before selecting one. There goes the Swan Song, leaving Nass with, again, a Treasure Cruise, a Dragon's Mantle, 2 lands there in Yavimaya Coast and Battlefield Forge.
And if Jonathan's taking that card, it indicates to me either more discard or a hand with a lot of counter spells, where he feels like he can win the fight down the line over Treasure Cruise.
Yavimaya Coast was the draw there for Nass, so he's got 2 of those now. He's going to play Battlefield Forge and just pass the turn back over to Salem. Salem will draw. Remember, he kept his opening 7 while Nass did take a mulligan. He'll play a Temple to see. Take a look at the top card. That's going to stay on top rather quickly. Salem with the Dissolve in hand, so maybe he's working his way towards that for the 3rd turn of the game. We'll go back Nass's way. Nass will take a draw. Just got Ascendancy right on time.
That was a huge draw because next turn Jonathan gets to be shields up with his counterspell.
Yep.
And this might be the last window Nass has to get this card into play, and now things get a lot easier for him.
And Nass's mana base is very painful. Again, 4 copies of Mana Confluence, 3 Yavimaya Coast, 3 Battlefield Forge. So it's a little ugly out there. But there's an Ashiok.
But this is the type of matchup where he's not really going to get punished for it. You know, Jonathan did beat him down last game. It mattered a little bit, but it's not like he's playing against some very aggressive deck where all these points of damage matter a lot.
He might try to be on the beatdown plan again here. Ashiok's going to come into play. It's going to turn over 3 cards. Sylvan Caryatid is 1. Springleaf Drum and Karametra's Favor are cards 2 and 3. So those will be exiled. From the Nightmare Weaver, we'll head back Nass's way. Nass will draw a card. It's a copy of, you guessed it, Nyxborn Rollicker.
Boom shakalaka.
That's coming into play. There's a Dragon's Mantle. That's going to trigger the Ascendancy, of course. So Nass will draw and discard first. Mana Confluence the draw.
And what's problematic now for Jonathan is Matthew is closer and closer to getting to Treasure Cruise and may be able to find a card like Swan Song, for example, that allows him to win a fight over Dissolve.
Going to discard the Mana Confluence. Now it's time to draw from the Dragon's Mantle. Hiya. Didn't get a great look at it. There's a Coast. He'll pass the turn back. We know he's got a Cruise over there, and one of the cards is a mystery.
Appears to be a second copy of Treasure Cruise.
Well, Nass has got some work to do then. Salem's going to draw his card for the turn. You see 2 islands over there. There's also a copy of Dig Through Time in hand. A little ways away from that part of the game, though.
Drown in Sorrow as well.
Not so bad.
You want to kill that thing?
Well, it's probably up to no good, so I would probably want to. Salem's going to take down the Ashiok, put Sylvan Caryatid into play.
I mean, if you replace Matthew's 4 lands in play with four mountains and the Ascendancy with some really mediocre red creature, this looks like many of my draft boards.
Oh, nice. Nice. Successful in draft, were we?
I did fine.
There's Drown in Sorrow. Helps to take 1 to cast it off the Caves. But that will clear away the Rollicker, which, you know, is obviously a good play in the abstract, but now you're working him towards Treasure Cruise.
Yep. And, you know, Jonathan's shields are down this turn, and not inconceivable for Nass to stock up his graveyard.
Yeah, he's got enough cards. He's got 4 in the bin right now. He's got 4 mana, so he says, you know what? I think I'll tap this 4 mana. I will cast a Treasure Cruise. Also get to trigger my Ascendancy, which is pretty neat. Yeah, so he gets to do a little draw discard. Matt will show him the 4 cards that he's removing. Some of those cards were from Ashok, of course, but they'll all be exiled. So, step 1, draw Nyxborn Rollicker, discard Mana Confluence, now Treasure Cruise, so appeal 3. 1's an Ascendancy, 2's a Coast, 3 is Dragon's Mantle, so he's trying to work his way back into things. Now he's got 2 cards in the graveyard. There is the Yavimaya, just pass the turn back. So back to Salem we're going to go. We'll see what Jonathan can put together here on his 5th turn of the game. We're going to start by taking up Ashiok. That'll turn over 3 cards. Swan Song, the Astronomer, and a Tri-Land among them.
You can see the power of Ascendancy here, even with Matthew mulliganing into a hand that had nothing going on. He is now developing quite a bit of card advantage.
Other end going to take care of the Ascendancy. Fortunately for Nass, he did draw another one off of that Treasure Cruise. Battlefield forwards the draw. Yeah, Ascendancy is the one card that's able to keep him in this game. Otherwise, it would not have been very pretty.
No.
Other end, you call that a full
retail.
Full retail.
It's not the discounted price. It's not on sale. You're paying full retail.
So do you think that Other End is on the Star Stadium's holiday sale?
No, it has to be full retail.
Okay.
It never goes on sale.
Gotcha.
It's 4 mana to kill something.
Let's see if Nass actually wants to play Disguise Ascendancy this turn.
I mean, we could put Ancient Tombs and City Traders on sale. You try to discount it that way. But Other End itself, no.
Gotcha.
Always full retail.
He's going to cruise it up. 3 more cards here. He's going to pay 6 mana for that cruise. Hey, 6 mana draw 3 is still pretty good. He'll just pass the turn back.
Against an opponent who's not really doing very much. I just want to draw every card that I can.
Ashiok's Elevator's going up. Throne Crusader among the cards. Springleaf Drum as well. See, Salem's going to take a look at some of the cards that have been exiled, get a better idea of what he has to worry about in Nass's hand. Salem will just pass the turn back with 1 dissolve at the very least at the ready, possibly 2. Nass going to go reaching for some mana here. It looks like he may try to resolve on Disguise Ascendancy. But we'll see. There is the powerful enchantment. Nass will take a little bit of damage from that, and Salem says absolutely not. I have a dissolve. Salem will scry. Top card staying on top very quickly. Looks like Nass may have a 3rd copy of Ascendancy in his hand.
But he does not have the mana left over to cast it.
Yep. It is a little color sensitive. We know that. Here's 2 mana. Looks like he may have to take 1 again. So whittling away at himself. Carry added. Dissolve that too. So Salem very aggressive with this dissolve.
Yes.
We can't forget, Jonathan left the top card on top of the previous dissolve. He doesn't even scry with this one. He knows what he's drawing. He knows that he wants it. Nass going to play a Chrono Crusader and pass the turn back over to Salem. Salem will draw a card. I wonder what he kept on top.
There was no way for Matt to tap his mana in such a way to be able to cast 2 Ascendancies last turn because he needs 2 sources of red and 2 sources of white, and his lands are 2 copies of Battlefield Forge among his 3 red sources. So
looks like Salem found a way to try to win this game, which is a copy of Brimaz, King of Ereskos. So that's into play.
That was a very aggressive use of Dissolve if Jonathan has nothing to fight over another copy of Ascendancy. Because that carry added really only matters if Ascendancy comes into play at this point.
Ashiok's going up. 2 copies of Retraction Helix along with the Sylvan Carry added to the cards that are exiled. Salem will pass it back with a little bit of mana available to try to bluff something here.
Interesting to keep track of the number of unique components that get exiled by Ashiok. For example, if all 4 Retraction Helix go away, could be problematic. Doesn't really matter too much, but something to keep in mind.
Karametra's Favor was the draw. Nass has got some thinking to do. He's got a lot of cards in his hand. Treasure Cruise has proven that it's quite good in this scenario and in this matchup.
Yep, it's all about attrition post board. Jonathan trying to load up on removal spells, counter spells, and a good way to fight 1-for-1 trades when your opponent's not killing you that quickly. Draw a bunch of cards.
Nass deep in the tank here. Because Ashok is threatening soon to go ultimate, which would make Nass lose everything.
I think Bermaz is way more likely to take over this game or just counter spells, but yes, there is also the threat of Ashiok.
A couple different angles he's coming from now.
Yep.
And one thing that Nass has to be concerned with, if he does have Jeskai Ascendancy in his hand, is do I even try to cast it now, or maybe I lead out with something else? It looks like he's going to try to lead out with an Astronomer, though again, he is a little bit unsure of himself at this point.
In an ideal world, he would have some sort of swan song protection. Because if he loses the Ascendancy, his hand does not have a lot going on.
There is the Astronomer. Looks like he's going to take a point of damage. Karametra's Favor. Trigger Heroic. Jonathan wants to take a look. I bet you guys do too. Ah, what a doozy that is.
Turns into Birds of Paradise.
It sure does. Triggering the Astronomer here, of course, with the Favor. And the Favor cantrips too. So, a unique inclusion in this deck.
What a deal.
Looks like Jeskai Ascendancy was the card that was found with the Astronomer. But don't forget, the Astronomer, you reveal an enchantment card. That's the big thing here.
And this card is nice for the Katamara's Favor. Is nice for the same reason that the Springly Drum fits in the deck so well. Really powerful Ascendancy. In fact, much more powerful once you have Ascendancy in play.
Caryatid too.
Yeah, because you have to, when you have Springly Drum to really go off, you have to find some way to get back to your hand, usually with Retraction Helix. But Birds of Paradise is really powerful with Ascendancy in play. Everything is free.
That's going to take another point of damage. Oh, the Rollicker. Oh, yes. It's being bestowed now. See, it's the versatility.
So many modes,
Yes.
you know?
That makes the Rollicker a real doozy.
You want to cast that thing to block the Krogan Crusader your opponent got into play that off the Ashiok that now has a Dragon's Mantle on it because you had to put the Dragon's Mantle on something? Go ahead and do that.
Yep.
You want to trigger the Astronomer? Does that too.
He's going to scale back a little bit, just a Sylvan Caryatid before passing the turn back. Salem's going to cast a Dig Through Time. Never a great feeling when your opponent is taking a look at 7 cards and choosing 2 of them. But that's exactly what's happening here for Jonathan.
Especially since Matt right now is very susceptible to end hostilities or some other sweeper.
Yep.
Yes, Jonathan loses a lot of his own board, but Ashiok's good enough to win the game from this spot, and Ass's hand is a little slow to recover if he gets swept.
5 cards go to the bottom, 2 go to the grip. Among them is a copy of Dig Through Time, so Salem will untap. It's time for him to draw a card. 3 fresh ones as he moves into his 7th turn of the game. Temple of Enlightenment among them. Looks like he has taken a Thoughtseize, and he will cast that. I know there may be some bad news here for Jonathan. There are 2 copies of Jeskai Ascendancy over there, along with the Rollicker and Dragon's Mantle. So there goes Jeskai Ascendancy. Turn over a couple of cards. Springleaf Drum, Karametra's Favor, and a Manic Influence. So Salem's going to write down those cards in the hand. The Rollicker, the Mantle, and the Ascendancy is what Nass is holding on to. Again, Ashiok's ultimate can happen next turn.
It is looming. But if Jonathan has no way to stop the Jeskai Ascendancy from resolving, Matt's got a good chance of going off next turn. Gets a lot of looks at it.
There's Bermaz. Cat token as well. Here come the beats.
And I think Matt is likely to say no blocks here because he can't risk a Drown in Sorrow. I think you just
Fair.
take the extra point of damage from the cat token. Don't put your Caryatid in front of it.
Looks like the Astronomer is going to get in front of the cat token. There's a Temple of Enlightenment. Top card to the bottom. Salem with just a couple cards left in hand. He has to pass the turn back. Nass is going to take a look at his exiled zone. See exactly what he can work his way towards here. It looks like he may be turning the corner here with that Ascendancy in his hand. His life total is high enough to still be able to operate.
2 mana creatures already.
To draw a copy of Temple of Plenty. That's a 2 of in this deck.
And I don't think Matt has the luxury of waiting.
Yeah, not with that Ashiok staring back at you.
And if that's the case, then I think Jonathan may have been better served by going after one of the the Dragon's Mantle in hand rather than the second copy of Ascendancy.
Yeah, I think so too.
Because the cheap cantrips are so dangerous, especially now with two mana creatures in play. Dragon's Mantle isn't just free, it's generating mana.
There's the mantle. It's on the Astronomer. So we'll trigger Heroic there. Karametra's favor among those cards. There's also a Rollicker in there. So there's the favor. And now he gets to draw a card with the mantle.
So Matt might be in a position where, because of what Jonathan took with the Thoughtseize, he's assuming that Jonathan has another counterspell. He's trying to see if he can find some help here, something like Swan Song, to be able to fight the counterspell war. I think that Jonathan may just be without anything at all, and if that's the case, Matt can just pull the trigger, but we will see in a moment.
Yeah, can he come to the conclusion that he can pull the trigger, especially when your opponent just resolved Dig Through Time and left mana up?
Yeah.
You know, that's the big question. Now, I think the coast is clear. Don't have a great look at Salem's hand, but I believe the coast is clear at this point.
The big problem is I don't know what Matt's plan is otherwise, because he loses everything next turn. So I feel like he's just got to cross his fingers and go for it, even though the writing on the wall is that Salem has a counterspell. Because over time, he's just losing mana doing this kind of stuff first before playing the Ascendancy.
Looks like he might be casting Karametra's favor here. Maybe not. Gonna play Temple plenty, get a little bit more info. Top card now is the bottom card. Very, very complicated deck here. Is this Astronomer Ascendancy deck? Never really seen it in action. A brew here by Nass. Pardee as well. You can see he's still trying to figure things out of how he goes about working his way through this situation. It's 2 mana.
It
looks to be.
It is not an easy spot if you're assuming your opponent has a counterspell in hand.
Yep. Nope, there's the favor on the Astronomer. Couple triggers coming here. One is for Heroic. Take a look at the top 3, take an enchantment. Nope. 3 go to the bottom. Draw a card from the favor. That one cantrips 2. This is another copy of Meletis Astronomer. 2 mana. 3 mana. Jeskai Ascendancy. Dissolve. Had the counterspell.
Yep.
I believe that's all 4. As far as Ascendancies are concerned. 1 was hit by Utter and 3 in the graveyard. Scry's done resolving there. 2 mana. Now it's time for Nass to get a little creative. Try to win this one.
Well, it's gotten a lot harder.
Oh, yeah.
To say the least.
Might only take one end hostilities now for Salem to wrap this one up. Nass considering his options, but take a look at that life total too.
Yeah, it's all sorts of trouble. I mean, he needs to leave himself with the best possible board where if he rips Treasure Cruise next turn, he has a shot of winning. So that's the mission at this point.
As far as Jeskai Ascendancies go, those are out of the equation. Another copy of Meletis Astronomer will come down, pass the turn back, will Nass over to Salem. Salem will draw a card. Ashiok's ultimate is looming.
Yeah, the foil was a little obfuscated on the screen. Jonathan having the Dissolve means, of course, his Thoughtseize last turn was correct.
Yep,
he had 2 ways to fight over the Ascendancies.
He's countered 2 of them. He's Thoughtseized 1. He's Utter End the other. So no more of that nonsense. Now can Salem win the game? Nash with a bunch of lands in play. They're all tapped though. Salem may have a discard spell in his hand, but he's reaching for mana. It looks like it is a copy of Sorin, perhaps. This will allow him to accelerate the clock, though. He is a little bit cautious, and I think the reason for that is because his other card is Dig Through Time.
And I don't know if Sorin does that much on this board. I think I would open on Dig Through Time here just for a little bit more information.
A long examination of the board, but makes sense when you're playing a deck you've never played against before. You have no idea what could be coming.
No.
You know, now Salem's having Nass kind of reorganize the lands and say, okay, what colors of mana do you have access to? What can you do? All right, here comes Permaz. Token's going to get blocked, and a Chrono Crusader is going to jump in front of the King of Oreskos. Ashiok goes up. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Treasure Cruise among them. Perhaps maybe we're on a mill you out strategy.
Okay. Though I don't know if that's entirely necessary because Permaz is representing. I mean, Matt's at 5 here.
Permaz can, well, maybe it's a dual angle attack. A little offense defense from Permaz, and then mill you out. Protect the Planeswalker, even though it does have 13 loyalty. Now here's Dig Through Time. So delve away some cards. Take a look at 7 of them. And as usual, get to select 2. And hostilities among the cards here that Salem is looking at. And he is selecting very quickly. Bile-Blight there as well. You actually see him taking a look at 2 of them. There's also an Elspeth as well.
I think and hostilities among the cards.
Yep.
He's got a lot of good options here.
So Dig is done resolving. 2 cards going to the grip, Bile-Blight being one of them. Salem could fire off a Bile-Blight right now. Take care of those Astronomers. Definitely an appealing option with 2 of them in play. And he's going to take the opportunity to do that, it looks like. Yep. Clear out all those permanents. We're going back Nass's way. Nass with no more copies of Jeskai Ascendancy. Just a Sylvan Carry added in play. We'll draw a card. Copy of Chrono Crusader is what he's found. Can he somehow weasel his way into a W here?
Weasel would be the right word for it.
Absolutely.
Because he's going to have to win some real dirty way at this point.
Would you say he'd have to
Get nasty?
Yeah.
Beat you to it. Yes, I would.
Well, he's going to go rollicking right now.
Now that you ask.
He'll create a token and just pass the turn back. Salem with an Urboard. He's reaching for mana. That's a Sorin. Won't have to take any damage off of that. But gaining life is pretty useful here for Jonathan. If he wants to go that route, or he can just make another blocker. Looks like he's going to tick on up. In comes Raz, cat token as well.
If he has the end hostilities in hand, it makes a lot of sense to go up. Because next turn he can end hostilities if he wants to, then start going down.
So we'll see how Nass wants to block here, if he does.
I think this is another sort of double chunk block kind of spot.
I guess he's at 5, you know?
His lands are so damaging.
And it's interesting, right? Because you wouldn't expect that to matter in this matchup, but it certainly does.
It's come up both games.
Yeah.
Where Jonathan has shaved at least a turn or two off by Matt's mana base dealing so much damage.
Because he's actually trying to kill the opponent. You know, this isn't a Sphinx's Revelation deck where I just don't want to die and then, yeah, I'll kill you eventually with Elspeth. No, this is a Planeswalker heavy build, much like what Shaheen likes to do.
You got to work.
Yep. Little card count here. We'll get that number from our table spotter now that the players are counting the cards. We don't try to force the action on that because you don't want to give away that piece of information. But once they're actually in that part of the game, then we can ask for the number.
You can always reverse engineer it by counting up the graveyard cards and play cards in hand and subtracting from 60, but we always don't have a good view of exactly how many cards are in the graveyard.
13 cards left. That's going to play a Temple after playing a Crusader. Pass the turn back. Salem plays a Temple of Lightman. Top card's going to go to the bottom. Vampire token allows Salem to start attacking in the air. Here comes Bramaz along with the cat token. So Bramaz will eat Sylvan Caryatid. The Chrono Crusader with Nyxborn Rollicker will block the token as it is a 2/2. Nass will draw a card.
I love the race between winning the game with damage and winning the game by milling out.
Well, a little column A, a little column B.
Mix and match?
Yeah.
The squeeze?
As it were. And that is going to do it. Jonathan Salem is going to win this match over Matt Nass 2-0 in a matchup that I thought Esper Control would have more difficulty with. Able to get the job done. Nass's draw game 1, not great. Game 2, took a mulligan, but you know, he's able to work his way back into it, but Salem was able to handle Jeskai Ascendancy.
He was always on the edge of being able to go off, but he couldn't quite do it. I think Thoughtseize and Dissolve, that was a challenging package. And the fact that this Esper Control list is able to go on the offensive a little bit was helpful too, because it's not like Salem can keep control of the game the whole way through, because there's only so many counter spells, only so many discard spells. So being able to go on the offensive and close the game out, not that quickly, but at least, you know, turn 9, turn 10, turn 11, it does help a lot in this matchup, because Jonathan has to keep Matt off balance, but he can't lock him out of the game for forever.
Yeah.